Hey guys, Zach here with the Kennedy Report. I know it's been a few days since we got a video out, but here we are now. I got a ton of people messaging me asking me, "Hey man, where have you been? Are you okay? Did the Chinese government pay you off? Did they, make you disappear?" No, I'm okay. I just had to take a few days off to kind of reset. I've been going through all this information coming out of China. I've been seeing all these videos that frankly are just crazy. And it was wearing me down a little bit, kind of getting a little depressed. But I had a recharge. I'm back in the fight now. I had to make preparations in my, real life world here to feel more comfortable with the situation. And I'll go over what I've been preparing towards the end of the video. But I wanted to just say thank you to the people that reached out to me. So awesome. And there was other people that reached out to me asking to see some of these videos and stuff, and I sent them that information. I love the fact that other people are wanting to engage in this and actually get their hands on and work towards it. The website is on pause for now. I just do not have enough time. My real life job is taking up a ton of time. Um, so going to be videos every day this week. I'm good to go. What else we got going on here? Real quick, Peak Prosperity. If my videos aren't coming out quick enough, go check out Peak Prosperities. Dude was a actual like virologist, so he understands this a lot better. He's got good information. He doesn't show you the raw data as much or the videos like I do, but he's got great information. And real quick before we get into this, what I want to talk about is something that he brought up in his video, and I think it's an excellent thing. We all know that hospitals are breeding zones for viruses and bacteria. They're places that you go to get treatment, but not dying. However, it's got a real good silver lining here, especially when we're talking about the coronavirus or NCOV19, as the WHO wants to say. It's politically correct. Um, so we have all these people in China as a prime example. When this thing started getting really scary and they did the quarantine and everything, or announced the quarantine, people bum rushed the hospitals. If they had a runny nose, if they had anything, they were just filling off. People were terrified in China, and all the hospitals got completely overwhelmed at the same time. People were waiting in line for days. Okay. How many of those people were actually sick and needed to go to the doctor, and how many of them, right? We don't know. How many of these people got infected because they ran to the hospital because they had a panic attack and ended up giving themselves the virus because they were in close proximity to somebody who had the virus. Um, so, some things that we've seen from the medical reports coming out of China is that we're seeing similar things with the people who go bad really quick. So when someone's infected with the virus, most people are going to have moderate symptoms. They say it's a really bad flu, but for the most part, they get over it. Mild symptoms don't need treatment. A good chunk of them, 20%, have those severe complications. They need help. And unfortunately, like 1, 2% dying. And that's if we're going off the numbers that the Chinese government's given us. So we really don't know the truth behind it. And, the world's been calling out their shit for a month now. Now, again, we'll go into more of this. I'll get back on the subject here. In the cases in which things go bad really quickly, or you can tell things are really changing, we're seeing people with fevers, really high fevers. Additionally, the oxygen saturation. You know those little things they put on your finger when you go to the doctor for a checkup, or you may see them. They're $20 at Walmart. Great little investment. A lot of these people are having oxygen saturation issues. We're talking about oxygen levels below 94%. So in Peak Prosperity's video, he highlighted the fact that a good way to avoid going to the hospital if you don't need to, go invest into one of those little $20 oxygen saturation things. Because right now, what our U.S. healthcare system is looking for is people with a fever and people with oxygen saturation levels below 94%. You can probably save yourself from going to ground zero in the United States by getting one of those little meters. You can tell yourself, like, okay, my oxygen's 95, 96, 97, 98, whatever it may be. As long as it's above 94 and you don't have a fever, you can probably avoid going to the hospital and possibly getting infected. Granted, I have to say as a caveat, I'm not a medical doctor. That is just the evidence that we're seeing coming out of China and what Peak Prosperity brought up. If you're having other symptoms that are concerning or life-threatening, of course you need to go to the doctor. But if we're talking about a cold and we're talking about bad, like flu-like symptoms, oxygen saturation below 94%, and high fever. With that being said, go to Walmart, go pick up one. it could save your life potentially. Additionally, food, water. These are things that you should be picking up anyway right now. Again, I'm not an alarmist. I'm not here to scream the building is burning down essentially, but you need to be prepared for these things, as I talk about in every video, and I will continue to talk about in my video, as well as other YouTubers talk about in their video. You should be buying food and water not only for this potential threat, but other potential threats: earthquakes, typhoons, hurricanes, whatever it may be in your region of the world. You should be actively preparing not only for yourself but your family. Some little other steps you can take: Lysol wipes, wipe down things, clean surfaces, kills the virus. Hand sanitizer is mostly used for bacteria, but we've seen that high alcohol concentration, 70% plus, could kill the virus as well. So if you're gonna put hand sanitizer on, really put it on. Get it hands wet. Little steps that you can do to reduce the spread of other viruses and NCOV in your home when you're going. Maybe take your shoes off at the door, put them in a grocery bag, ziplock them until you use them again. Wash your hands upon coming home. When you wear your shoes through your house after you've been at work or you've been at the store, you are tracking viruses and bacteria onto your shoes, and if you walk through your house, you're leaving a trail of it possibly in your home. And if you have children, they're crawling on the floor, or you have pets, they're picking it up and moving it around. We do know the coronavirus is airborne, so that brings in a whole different threat meter, if you will, and it's going to be pretty hard to prevent, if I'm being honest with you. But we're going to be optimistic and talk about things we can do. Yeah, so that's a quick GIF on that. Let's get into the numbers. Let's get into some evidence and some videos. This video is probably going to be a little bit longer than some of my other videos because it's just been so long since we've talked about it. But here we go. It is currently, let me pull up the date, the February 18th, 2020, and for me it is 10 o'clock at night. And yeah, I'm pretty tired. I just got off a full day of work, but I want to get this video out for you guys. If you enjoy my content, or if you want to support me, give it a share, give it a like, subscribe. Again, we don't get paid for these videos. This is informational, but the more information we can get out there, and it helps people, because there's still people out there that don't believe this is a threat. I was at work today and someone quoted the flu's more dangerous than the NCOV. And I, of course, tried to open a window of debate, and give them the information and allow them to look it up. And I really hope that they saw that information and, they got curious, because people getting curious about what's happening is what's going to lead to us having more information to fight this virus and others like it in the future. Because, believe it or not, it's not a matter if an epidemic is going to occur. It's a matter of when, and right now we're in one. So we are at 74,000 cases around the world. We're just going to round down. More than likely, a lot more than that. But again, we can't trust the Chinese government's numbers because they controlled the information flow for so long. And the deaths, all that, and we're going to go into it. We got a medical report that came out the other day that stated that the infected in China could be 1 million. Forgive me. And let's get into this. So we're going to go ahead and scroll in on our first area we always check on. Hubei province, mainland China, is at 61,000 confirmed cases and almost 2,000 deaths and 10,000 recovered. It ain't getting better over there. As we've been saying every week, it's only getting worse, and this should be the leading example for all the other cities and provinces around China. 10,000 recovered. That's a good number. Some positive news too is we are hearing early reports that taking the blood from those who have recovered and getting those antibodies and putting them in the critically ill patients. We've seen this in other treatments, for other things, and it seems to be working really well. So they have some antibodies in them. It's doing great. Some bad news is, though, evidence is showing that the second time you get the virus, it's far more deadly. Let's go ahead and pull up handy dandy graph. I want to say it was about right here at 36,000 we did our last video. Again, the Chinese government has a set number for which they allow information to be released. People predicted the model, they posted it online, and for a couple days the Chinese government made no adjustments. They just kind of the death count came out the same and the infected rate came out the same. And I think they caught on to like, holy shit, people were actually like figuring out our model. And when we were on the 12th, they came out with a new way of diagnosing the coronavirus. Instead of just relying on those test kits, they started doing CT scans and apparently confirmed like 30,000 cases overnight. That was big holy shit, this is scary moment. But the Chinese government said, "Oh, don't freak out, you know, this we thought they were infected, but we couldn't confirm." Those little test kits supposedly have like a 60% fail rate, if you will. They'll come back 60% negative, even though people actually have it. So they're failed in the west and in the east. As we can see the graph, it is still climbing. 72,000, only 2,000 cases overnight. And then again, it's still early in the day over there. Still showing 74,000 cases. I don't believe this graph. Obviously, we know it's a lot higher. The the recovered rate is at almost 15,000 worldwide. That's a good number. 15,000 recovered, 78,000 sick, and cases outside of China just hit 1,000. Kind of negative news, but at the same time, I'm really surprised that we haven't seen more cases pop up around the world, if I'm being frank. This is a highly infectious disease, and we know it is because we look at the Princess cruise ship in Japan with 542 cases. Actually, pull up the exact number. 542 confirmed cases on that cruise ship of, I want to say, 3,600 people. And most of them have not been tested yet. Still no deaths. But we did get some sad news out of the Japanese health minister today that said that there are 27 people from the cruise ship in critical care right now. These are people that are on oxygen and need life-saving medicine. 7. And so the other thing we saw coming, and I don't have the video saved right now, so I can't show you guys it. But the cruise ship, it was kind of weird, right? For like a week, they were just following the cruise ship. This was the mainstream media's real first attempt at covering this virus in depth. They weren't pulling these people off the boats. They quarantined them on the boat, and they didn't let them leave their rooms. Yet it exploded. The infections. We went from like 16 people to 60 people, and when it hit 120 people, people were like, "Holy shit, this is really bad." But we're at 542 cases now. And remember, this disease, virus, I call it disease, potentially has a incubation period of 24 days while you're still infected. We're also seeing people that work for the Japanese healthcare system, whatever you call it, health ministry, going onto the ship. They're in proper equipment to help, tend to these people's needs. And somehow these people, when they're taking off their gear, they're bringing the virus with them, and they're actually infecting people. They've actually linked some of these workers to infecting others in the country who aren't on the cruise ship or have anything to do with it. Japan is now at 74 cases. And some people say they're going through a silent outbreak right now because, again, that incubation period is so long. An excellent example of this is a taxi driver, one of the first people, who's thought to have had the virus, contracted it from a Chinese tourist, and for 2 weeks, he had no idea he was infected with the virus, didn't think anything of it. His mother came down with like a weird illness, and she was actually the one and only death confirmed in Japan so far. And for 2 weeks, this guy was driving around. He was infecting others potentially. He was infectious but did not have symptoms. And his mother or mother-in-law passed away, and that is when he was actually confirmed infected. So she actually got hit by the virus really quickly, and unfortunately she was deceased, and he didn't even get confirmed to have the virus until the day of it or 2 days after or something like that. It really goes to show how this affects everyone a little bit differently and how potentially dangerous this is with how easy it can spread. Now back to the cruise ship. We have videos of men in hazmat suits on the cruise ships going around and duct taping the vents. Obviously this is airborne, and there's enough studies on it that says it is, but it's crazy. It's almost like they kept these people on this cruise ship to do a test. It's the perfect vessel to do it on. Cruise ships are notorious for spreading germs around, and I'm not gonna go down the conspiracy theorist road, but I mean, you want to know how infectious the disease is because China's not letting the U.S. government in. China's not letting Japan into the country to study these things early on. So here we have this cruise ship. Let's go ahead and quarantine everybody, and they can't leave the ship. See how infectious it is, and damn, is it infectious. 3,600 people on board that boat roughly, and already 542 cases. Absolutely crazy. And 27 people in critical care. Singapore overtook Japan for cases reported. Now, look how far away Singapore is from mainland China, okay? Huge distance, okay? And I know there's a lot of people that live in there. Just absolutely crazy. Hong Kong, expect it in a way, so it's not too surprising. South Korea is also reporting native cases. These are people that don't have any travel history recently. These are people who down with the virus from somebody else. So we have to ask ourselves how many people are currently infected with this virus. They're incubating it, they're infectious, and they have no idea because they're not showing any symptoms yet and they're walking around. With many cases now showing up to 24 days. Originally, people were saying, oh, there's only one person. There's one guy who's been quarantining himself in his home, doing a self-quarantine for 14 days. Despite growing evidence that this incubation period is completely, all over the place, with many people, being like 3 or 4 days and many other people being like 18 to 20 days. So he only quarantined himself for 14 days and that was it. And he's like, well, it's a rare case. Well, it doesn't matter. The fact that it is happening means that you should probably quarantine yourself for 24 days at minimum. you know Get it, it sucks staying in your house, but like some of us are quarantining ourselves already because we don't want to go out there and risk it in a country that only has 15 cases. Well, let me take that back. The United States now has 29 confirmed cases of the coronavirus. I need to do some research on that because last time I checked it was only 15, and apparently we doubled our number at some point in time, so I need to look into that. Let's actually do that real quick. Okay, so Nebraska has 14 confirmed cases in Nebraska, Omaha. I think that's where they are keeping some people that came in from China on one of those evacuee flights. So maybe they confirmed some people had the virus. I need to look into that. We'll talk about it in the next video. Let's go ahead and get into our first thing. Early epidemiological assessment of the transmission and potential virulence of the 2019 coronavirus in Wuhan. So this, we talked about this 2 weeks ago. These guys estimated that the NCOV rate could be as high as 4.5 to 6.1, and that was like, holy shit, this is scary, this is a really virulent thing. They are now saying, we found in our posterior assessments that the basic reproduction number, so that R0 we talked about in Wuhan City in 2019 to 2020, is calculated to be as high as 7,611. So as high as 7 and as low as 611 it looks like. Or let's double check. And the enhanced public intervention after January 23rd has declined to an R0 of 3.24. So that's actually good news in a way. They believe originally the virus was far more infectious, but due to the crazy measures that the Chinese government have put into effect, they've brought that number down. Unfortunately, it needs to be at a 1 for it to be self-contained. The fact that it's at a 3 means that this is going to continuously infect people. So unless they get that down, it's not going to matter. Primary transmission stability in Wuhan, China. Yeah. So, and again, this isn't a peer-reviewed study, but these guys were pretty head-on originally. We're going to keep following. This is from a Japanese health ministry, basically a college, if you will. 30 doctors have quarantined themselves over coronavirus fears after coming into contact with an infected general patient at a NHS meeting, general practitioner at a meeting. So these doctors have quarantined themselves potentially because they don't want to infect others or they're afraid. And Go ahead. This is the part of the show everybody waits for, where we get information out of China. So again, we don't know if this is accurate, but we're going to show it anyway. 40 mobile cremate furnaces that support 5 tons a day of waste have arrived in Wuhan. Now, these are made specifically for trash, and they're also made for animal carcasses. A lot of people don't know this, but right now China is going through several pandemics. They have swine flu, they have bird flu, and they have coronavirus, and I'm sure they have a few others. Now, there are horrifying videos all over the internet of pig farmers in China. Pigs in China have been decimated from the swine flu. We're talking 50% of all pigs in China are dead. They're gone. They have been filling trenches full of live pigs and pouring diesel on them. Live. Horrible. The videos, the sounds they make, it's the shit of nightmares. It is terrible. Now, some people would say, okay, so these are used to maybe help with the pigs, help dispose carcasses, because that's a problem. Problem is why is it in Wuhan? They delivered 4 of these per day. I'm sorry, 40 of them into Wuhan, the major epidemic center of this, where we already had reports of the crematoriums running 24/7 and still not having enough to get rid of the corpse, deal with the infected bodies. So, if you want any of the links to this, you can. They are this square cabin is the size 20 foot with a volume of 30 cubic meters. It could basically very quickly incinerate whatever. Yeah, so we got quite a few videos, honestly, that kind of go into that same subject, the crematorium, getting information and risking. Information coming out of China is almost completely stopped. It's gotten damn near scary how good the Chinese government can control the flow of information. Um, People got a little brave when that doctor passed away, and they wanted to talk about their stories, and they overloaded the firewall, if you will. There was just too much shit for them to filter out, so we got some great content. And then as people's like rage kind of declined, and like they went back to being quiet and afraid of the government, it went quiet again. So very few videos have changed and come out. Okay, so we have this Chinese doctors from Wuhan, coronavirus reinfections even deadlier. So we've got a few case studies on this. SARS-1, when they were making or attempting to make a vaccine for SARS-1, it turned out that the second time that people got it, it was far more deadly than the first time in their studies. And even in the vaccine, it caused issues where the autoimmune system went crazy. It created a storm, and it killed people. Now, they're saying the same thing with the coronavirus. We saw about 2 to 3 weeks ago a flood of videos of people just dying instantly. Tons of videos coming out of China, security footage, cell phone footage, where people were just sitting there talking, acting all normal, and then they would just fall over and die. Now, what some people are saying is that a lot of people who had mild symptoms, they first had the coronavirus back in December, may not have had severe symptoms like we've talked about. Only 20% of people are having complications. It wasn't a big deal. But apparently the second time you have it, it can do some damage. They're saying that this is probably likely why there's a lot more deaths. People passing it back and forth again, and on the second time it's just far more deadlier because it damages the heart tissue and a bunch of other things. So this came from a doctor within China talking to a relative in the United Kingdom. He told him the situation. Again, hearsay, we can't confirm, but we can look to SARS-1 as an example of it's not uncommon for viruses to be more deadly the second time around, despite the belief that you're going to build a natural immunity to this. Okay, is this the same one we read before? Yes, it is, so we're going to go ahead and close that out. False negatives. So this is what we were kind of covering on. So this is another medical journal. In an interview with Chinese state broadcast CCTV, Professor Wang Chen, an expert in critical disease and director of the Chinese Academy of Medical Science, said one characteristic of the virus is not all those infected basically infected by it return positive NAT, those test kits. Even patients who definitely have the disease only come back positive 30 to 50% of the time, Professor Wang said. Testing throat swabs from potentially infected people also returns false negatives. We're seeing a lot of like nasal swabs, throat swabs. We know this isn't an upper respiratory disease. This is a lower respiratory. Unless you're getting, the lung fluid, you're not going to possibly get the virus in those areas, the nasal zone, the throat swab. So even the Chinese government of all people is admitting 30 to 50% of these test results come back negative. How many people are actually infected, but they're not being picked up because it's not proper testing? And I think that's why the CT scans are critical. And we're seeing the American Health Network start making new criteria where it's no longer just, have you been to China recently? When you come in with these strange symptoms, it's, okay, is their fever high? And is their oxygen saturation level low? Once you have those two indicators pop up, you're probably immediately going to go in and get a chest scan because that's the best way to find the virus right now. So, interesting report from the Chinese government itself. U.S. firm develops new tests that can confirm cases in 30 minutes. Don't know. Honestly, we don't really have that much. And again, we need to make sure that this test is actually accurate because the Chinese government said the same thing. Old news, but this is archived and we're going to bring it up every single time. Worker of a crematorium claimed to have basically they burnt 127 bodies in one day at this one crematorium, which is a smaller one. Only 8 were confirmed cases, but 48 were suspected of the coronavirus. So what does this mean, right? This was early on, okay? A cremation worker, whatever you want to call them, came out and called this news network and said, hey, we're working 24/7. We do not have enough cremators available to burn all these bodies. Majority of these bodies showed up aren't confirmed or unconfirmed. They're just showing up in mass. Only a few of them are actually confirmed. Many of them are suspected of being. So we have to ask ourselves how many of these people are actually infected, and how many deaths are really occurring to this virus. Right now, China's still saying only 1,000, but in my opinion, you don't send 40 mobile cremators to the epidemic unless there's a real problem. 5 tons. Okay. And as always, we like to go over to Liao Diming's Twitter because this guy has some great videos. We got some protests going on. With that cremator story, that's where we originated. The new 4,500 bed cremation center is now open, aka anyone with the fever is going to get thrown in this thing even if they have the virus or not. And with how close they are, we know this thing is airborne. How many people who get thrown in this thing are actually going to end up getting? We are seeing things pop up all over China. We're talking tons. More fires. So that's the other thing that's been occurring a lot in China, and I have a ton of videos of. I try not to play them. A lot of these places where people have been welded into their card, it almost seems like people are going around and setting them on fire intentionally, which is terrible, but fear has a powerful effect on people. People who are afraid and they think like there's a reason why the Chinese government is welding them in their homes. We're seeing clashes pop up. I got to be careful because this guy does not filter what he posts. So if you want to see some of the videos that I've been talking about, but I can't share with you, he has many of them. Twitter is a great place for freedom of information, really. Yeah, no, I don't know. We're just gonna keep playing here. That doesn't sound Chinese to me. Resets and goes back up every single time. That's Honduras. Okay. 48-year-old female tourist flew from Los Angeles with the transfer to Honduras. She was reportedly recently on a vacation to Taiwan, which we know has some cases. Let's double check Taiwan. Taiwan, there you go. 22 cases. Silent epidemic potentially breaking out as well. Absolutely nuts. Homeless people, a lot of people have just been completely left out. Being in places, the Chinese Nazi guard going around and enforcing the quarantine, making sure people are actually inside the house. If they get caught outside of the house, they get the shit beat out of them. You got guys like this who have lost their mind and they're throwing all these, like, you know, quarantine cards around. He's got his mask off. He just doesn't care anymore. He's burnt out. Excellent picture here. You got Xi Jinping. He doesn't have his mask on, so the police are pinning him down. You know, just great little content, okay? Another guy I really recommend checking out is Alex Dong in Y. Same thing, he posts some videos as well. Unfortunately, a lot of them don't have translation, so you're going to need to manually translate them yourselves. A good way to do that if you're wanting to get involved in this kind of content is to go on Google Translate. It's got a great translate program that goes from English or Chinese to English. See, Google Chrome automatically will translate things. Some great content, and you know, Alex has a lot more wider content. His isn't as graphic as the first one we talked about, but it definitely highlights some good stuff that you're just not going to see on American media. See doctors dancing in full hazmat suits. Okay, his doesn't update that much as well, so we'll go back here. A little bit of a loose video, first time back in a while, so bear with me. Completely numb. Okay, so that kind of catches us up on the situation we're going here with. I will have another video compilation coming out of China released shortly that kind of highlights, kind of like a couple videos ago I did, where we just talk about the videos that are coming out of China and not so much just the raw information. More videos will be out this week. Like I said, every single day I will be getting them out there to you. Now, for the end of the video, we wind down. We're going to talk about things that I'm doing in my personal life now to prepare for this, because frankly, I think that this is going to keep growing. I think the situation, while most governments are now awake and understand the concerns that people like me have, citizen journalists have, this is no longer a China problem, okay? Just look at the map. The United States has cases on every side of it. In the middle of the country, the east and west coast, almost all of Europe has confirmed cases. And if you want to see where the pudding is here, the concern I have, all the developed countries have confirmed cases. We don't have any confirmed cases in South America. We just saw the video that potentially says Honduras has a case. We don't know. It's early and it's just a video. There's not a lot of context there. No, Los Angeles has confirmed cases, so she may be infected. And again, the incubation period, people are infectious. South Africa, South America, and a good chunk of the Middle East here are hotbeds of people. There's a large population of people that are living subprime conditions. They're emerging countries, if you will. Their health infrastructure is terrible. It is what it is. You do not want these cases breaking out over there, and we're not going to know. So this thing could start piling up very quickly, and we won't know. So I am of the thought that this is going to be a yearly virus now. It has firmly placed itself in the world's population. It is going to continue to thrive, and, you know, we really don't know. Again, reports of this thing coming out of labs are coming out again. Even the Chinese government slipped on something the other day saying that, well, we don't know for sure that it came from a lab. Come on, man. Talking about bats and stuff. We're going to cover that in another video. I don't have the information on hand, so I don't want to talk about it too much. But I really want to hit home. South America, huge population centers in Brazil, people living in poverty. South Africa, keep hitting this home. Saudi Arabia, India. India has 3 confirmed cases. India is a populated place on the planet. Tons of slums. We just won't know. People die every single day from other diseases, and it's just like malaria kills hundreds of thousands of people in these poor countries. Coronaviruses, they're not going to be thinking about that because they're already worrying about 3 other epidemics that are occurring in their countries. It may be too late before someone connects the dots and says, let's test this person for coronavirus with what limited resources they have. How we don't have more cases in the U.S. is mind-blowing to me. I hope it stays that way because, I've been taking actions in my personal life to be ready. Again, I don't care what people think about me because the fact of the matter is I'd rather be prepared than not be prepared. And, buying food, buying water, these are critical things. You should be doing it. Just having it on hand for other emergencies, it's going to get used one way or another. And as time goes on, replace your stock. If things are about to expire, put it on the table, eat it for lunch, dinner, whatever, and then go buy more and replace it. It's pretty simple. Always have a rotating emergency stock that should last you at least 2 weeks. You can go a little more hardcore. Buy some cleaning products, toilet paper. Toilet paper is like gold in Asia right now. Simple little things that allow you to stay at home, and if you have to go out, buy a mask, okay? Here's a story for you. As I've said, I'm a type 1 diabetic. I take insulin injections to keep myself alive. I rely on the government because I was in the military when I came down with diabetes. And, I was a healthy young man, okay? And whatever happened, happened. And now I rely on the government to pay for my medication because they agreed to it, or however it worked out. I had to go to the local military hospital to get my medication the other day, and, obviously I'm paranoid a little bit about this virus, so I checked into the pharmacy, and I went to the very back. I didn't sit in any of the seats. I went as early as I could to avoid the crowds, because this place is a madhouse when it is busy. Terrible. Talking 2-hour waits just to get your medication. So I'm sitting in the not even sitting, I'm in the very back of the pharmacy wing of this hospital, in a corner next to the door. And I'm covering my face, I have a mask on, and I'm just watching content. I'm trying to get my next video, ideas lined up. And I hear people sneezing, and I'm looking at all these, none of them wearing masks. They probably just have the flu in the normal northwest cold that happens this time of year. But geez, none of them are covering their mouths. None of them are wearing masks, and they're spreading the virus, and it is packed. There's one person coughing and sneezing, and there's 10 people sitting right next to him, sitting there eating fucking food and drinking, and not even, like, washing their hands and not caring. I see this. This is what pissed me off, and I wanted to make a comment about it. This guy, he's, like, blue in his face, and I'm like, oh, shit, there's coronavirus, patient 10, jokingly in my head, and he's sitting there wiping his nose and his hands, and he's touching the handrails on these chairs. He's getting up, walking over, he's typing in the kiosk to check how far away he is. Meanwhile, I'm the guy who just touched that fucking kiosk 5 minutes before. So I was paranoid. I got my hand sanitizer out and I drenched my hands. I'm getting my medication early. I'm trying to stockpile as much as I can so I don't have to go back to that. I talked to the VA and I said, can you please just ship my medication to my house because I don't want to go to these hospitals. They agreed and they sent it to me. It was pretty awesome. I wish I could do that for all my prescriptions and all my needs and other people as well, because you don't want to go to hospitals when this thing potentially hits the United States and is in force, because again, these are going to be hot zones. People who are sick are going to go to the hospital. They're highly infectious. This thing is airborne, and you might get it going to the hospital. That's not to make you afraid to go to the hospital, because think about it this way. The infection rate is really high. Death rate is 2% that we know of. Roll the dice on that one. I don't know about you, but no amount of rolling the dice makes me comfortable knowing that one of those rolls ends in death. let alone 20% in critical condition in a hospital. And unfortunately, my, body puts me predisposed to getting the shitty end of the deal. And I don't have good luck, so I'm not going to roll the dice. I'm going to avoid it as best as I can. That little oxygen meter trick, fantastic. Don't go to the hospital unless you absolutely have to. If you have the flu and you have bad symptoms, you can't keep water down, you need to go. You might need to get some fluids, get some Tamiflu, whatever it might take. Good luck finding masks to buy. That's been hard. So I've been stockpiling food, mask. I've been, getting my medication. Um, I've done some other things that I'm not going to talk about because, again, people will get really pissy and judgmental. Um, I have been buying more ammo and guns. I'm not going to lie. I bought a few because, hey, we need to be able to protect ourselves. Not, and that's an option for me here in the United States. Some people around the world don't have that luxury. People don't understand how crazy human beings get. The average American does not have more than 4 days of food in their house at a time. So if some shit hits the fan and they can't go to the grocery store and get their food, have family and you need to feed them, people are willing to commit crime. People are willing to go to their neighbors and steal from them. People will do a lot of things when they're desperate. And I hope to God it never gets to that point. But you need to be prepared for that kind of thing. Because I tell you what, if I didn't have any insulin and shit got scary, I would find a way to get insulin. Let you solve that with your head. Because you know what? I have to take care of my wife and kid. I don't have a choice. I have to be healthy. And it is what it is. You should take simple steps now because this is the perfect time to do it. And I know I talk a lot with my hands. It's what I do when I'm tired. But, I'm trying to just get this information out there. Prepare now because this is the best and easiest time. And financially, it's not easy for a lot of people. I'm not a rich man by any means. I have a very, you spend what you can where you can. Canned food, some tips I can recommend. Go to the Dollar Tree. They got all kinds of stuff that's in a can. It's got a long shelf life. $20 will get you 5 days of food if you shop correctly. There's a lot of things you can do. Bottled water, things like that. If you don't want to buy bottled water, spend $20 on a Life Straw. Life Straw is a fantastic thing. They filter 50,000 gallons of water in the life of one straw. You can literally go to a muddy puddle in the middle of a parking lot, break this thing out, and drink from it, and you're not going to get sick because it filters all that shit out right then and there. So little things you can prepare for. Again, I'm talking about some of the worst case scenarios, but as somebody who studied Homeland Security and studied emergency management, one needs to look no further back than New Orleans and Hurricane Katrina to see how quickly society can break down and people break the. We're talking about an emergency site in the stadium in which people are told to go there because that's a safe zone, but the government couldn't supply it correctly, and it ended up being potentially a murderous rape fest of people taking advantage of each other because humans are some of the worst creatures on this planet and they're capable of truly horrible things. Protect yourself, protect your loved ones, avoid it. Prepare now and you don't have to worry about it later. That's what I got for you tonight. We will be talking about the economic things in the next video I'm going to be working on. Right now, I'll just give you a little preview. The global supply chain is halted. China has got most of our manufacturing in the world occurring there. We're talking about generic medication. 90% of it is made in China. The ingredients for normal medication is made in China and shipped around the world to be manufactured into its final form. We rely on China for so much. We put ourselves in a penicillin manufacturing, everything is based in China, and with the Chinese workforce completely halted right now, it's not looking good. On that note, be expected, okay, it was Chinese Lunar New Year. People weren't going to work for 2 to 3 to 4 weeks. It's over now. People are supposed to be returning to work. That supply gap, that extra effort they put in before Chinese Lunar New Year to get a bulk supply out to cover that is running out. And all across the country and around the world, factories, stores, are going to start running out of things that we rely on China to make. I'm going to make a video specifically talking about that, recovering that, because I don't think people realize how shitty things are going to get if things don't change. And there will come a point, I'll tell you right now, that a government decides that a crashing economy is far more dangerous than this virus, and it's absolutely true. Society can break down very quickly with a crashing economy. So at some point in time, the risk of a crashing economy and the virus, those scales are going to shift, and someday it's just a matter of when. There's already a mathematical model out there that all the governments are going by, I'm positive, that says, you know what? More people are going to die from this economy thing by not sending people to the factories than people from the virus. And they'll make that decision and people will get sent back to work. Alright guys, that's Zach with the Kennedy Report. If you enjoyed this video, please share, like, help spread the word. Let me know how I'm doing in the comments. I know this video is a little bit more different than some of my other ones, a little bit more laid back, maybe a little less professional, but I felt like I needed to get it out to you. You guys have a good night. Take care.